Hey everyone, welcome back to the third tutorial of this box modeling series. Our previous tutorials explained how to find reference images and how to use them to design a basic topology plan to use as a guide for our 3D model. This tutorial I'll explain how to create our blueprints within Photoshop and how to export them into 3ds Max. So first of all, I just minimized the crossbow a little bit further down, just so I have a little bit more room to move in my on my canvas. We'll be creating the top view, front view, side view, and bottom view. So first off, we'll create the top view. Now, I've changed the color to red, so if you want to change it to red, you can, that's fine. Also, create a new layer called Blueprint Outlines, so we can use this as a guide. Now, first of all, with the top view, obviously you can see the first arrow and the second arrow. The first arrow and its mechanism, the little trigger on top, and as well as the extruded piece of wood on top of the base object. So as you can see, this top part here will be first, and then followed by this part here be second, and then you'll be able to see this bottom part here, as well as the bows themselves, obviously. So obviously, also the top view won't be able to see the handle or anything underneath, as well as anything on the side as well. So just keep that in mind. So first off, we'll just get a basic outline of how we think the bow might look. So give a bit of room, maybe do it around about here, just so you have room to create the bows themselves. So we can just start around this center area here. So we'll be working on one half of the bow, and then I'll show you a way to copy that half and flip it to the other side, so that way we halve our time pretty much. Okay, so let's start by doing the top piece. Now, we're going to start this probably about where the top piece obviously starts, and down to the bottom of where the handle begins. So, just go back here, do Shift Straight Line, whoops, Control Z, click Shift Straight Line. You can put it wherever you want, just make sure you have enough room for the bow at the top here, but you can always move the line down wherever you want. So we'll just do the foundations first, and then we'll worry about that later. So start at the top, so work our way down just to get the correct lines, right? Shift going down, shift click, or shift straight down to get a straight line. So, alright, so we've got our base square there. We're going to work our way backwards, so we can start by going from the end of the handle to the start of the raised block. So as you can see, if I go in a little bit closer, you can see that the raised block is kind of tilted. So what I mean by that is, if I look at it on the side view, it will come from the back of the handle to the base of the tilted wooden block to the top of the wooden block, and then it will start from there. So as you can see, it's kind of like a sloped raised area. So I'll just undo that there. So we'll just include that into our top perspective view. I'm just going to move. I'm going to select the move tool, and I'm going to select the reference image and move it closer to where we're working from. So that way I don't have to keep zooming in and zooming out all the time. So I'll just move it probably about here. Looks like a good area to work in. Probably a little bit further down here. Alright. Okay, so once you moved it in a good position, select your brush again. Select the correct layer. Okay, so let's just look at it. We'll zoom in a bit, and it'll probably be about here is where the slope would start. The slope would start, and then probably about here it will stop. So all the way down, probably about further down. We'll be working on the outside as well. So further down, the wooden piece stops, and the new piece starts. So as you can see in this area here, so we'll keep that there. So let's probably about here we can make it. So I just zoom out. It doesn't really matter at this point where everything is. We can always adjust it later. If there's not enough room, we could always move the lines out or push them in, pull them in, whatever. So, but for now, as long as we got all the foundations down, that's all that's important. So, yeah. So once we've done this part here, we can create a line inwards. So what line we just did then is this line here. So when you're looking down, you'll be able to see this wooden piece, and then it will go down to this next piece here. So this is the line that we just created in there. So just create that. Always holding shift drag to keep those lines. Alright, so all the way down to the base there. Now, as you can see, the top part of the bow, this top part here, actually has a little curve on it. And the curve doesn't go all the way through. It stops probably where it does stop where the top part starts. So whatever we've done here in this area here is where that curved area is. So we can just create that curve area by simply shift drag down. So it's probably about a centimeter wide, so probably about a centimeter wide there as well. So as well, we'll create where the arrow actually sits. So this what we're working on at the moment looks pretty thick, pretty long. So we can easily change that by just removing any of the unwanted lines that we don't want so far. So just thin it up a bit. So okay. So we'll just create that little insert from where the top arrow sits. So probably about here is a good place to have it. So about 1 centimeter in, 1 centimeter in, 1 centimeter in, and then probably about 10 centimeters down, and then probably about 7, 1, and then probably about 5 there. So it's all just a rough estimate. As long as you have, like I said before, all the foundations of the bow in your top view, then that's fine. So okay, so we'll just get rid of any extra lines that we don't want. So we'll get rid of that. Actually, we'll keep this line here for now anyway, because it can be the insert to where the bow goes, where the arrow goes. So just keep that for now. Alrighty. As you can see, the wooden piece, where this wooden piece starts, doesn't necessarily stop where the trigger is. The trigger is a lot further back. So where we have our wooden piece, where it starts, the trigger would probably be about here, in this area here. So just remember where these certain details are located. So just to keep in mind, just undo those. Undo. So yeah, the trigger would probably be about here. So we can lengthen this line up a little bit more, all the way down, probably about halfway in between where that wooden piece starts and where it slopes down. So about here, and then shift drag down, and the triggers probably be about 1 centimeter as well. So yeah, about there. As you can see, it's got an indentation, or it's broken up into 2 triggers. This is fine. We can just create a line across there. Same thing what we did with this part here. So let me just drag this line down a bit further, because what I'm going to show you very soon is we're going to flip this side down to here, so we can have our working time. So okay. Also too, the back piece is rounded, so we'll just round that off. Shift, click, rounds it off. A little bit easier for you. Just get rid of that. Okay. Now that we got this top part pretty much done, we can move on to this front part here. We won't worry about doing the arrows this time. We'll just focus on the crossbow itself. So yeah, as you can see, these wooden pieces actually don't start on the outside of where the base of the crossbow is. They actually go in and then out. So yeah, just make sure when you're doing a model you take those those principles into consideration as well. So also too, these wooden blocks are probably the same same proportion as this top block here. So we can use that to our advantage. So we can just start the blocks probably about where the top piece starts, and shift drag out to create a block itself. So, and just down like that. So that way we've got where our arrow sits here and our bottom arrow sits here. Okay. Also too, the top part here is, remember what we said before with the topology plan, that it's halfway extruding out and halfway facing in. So remember this. When we're creating it, always don't start outside of it and then work our way out. Start halfway where you think. So say it's about this thick. Whoops, this thick. Then the center of it would be about here. So that way the center of it would be where the end of the blocks are. So okay, I'll just undo that. So we'll just start probably about here. Extrude out. The sharp bits doesn't really matter how far away they are. Probably just extrude them just past where the bow actually ends, and just shift click, and just shift drag down. Okay. So now that we've got this top part done, all we have to do now is the bows themselves. So simply, if the top view is too high up, we can simply just move it down using the move tool. Just move it down, just click and drag down, and then go back to the brush tool. Now remember what we said, the bows themselves are actually in the front part here and not in here. So keep that, be aware of that. They're also probably halfway between those two blocks. So about halfway where the blocks start and end. So we'll just go here, about halfway where the blocks start is where we can start our bows, and the bows are pretty much the same length, so half of that half. So pretty much like that. Now let's just start with the smallest bow first. Let me just open up the topology plan for a second, which I think is down here. Yeah, down here. See what I was saying before with the polygons? See how we've got probably about 1 square, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares? That's probably what we were looking for with our bow. So about 5 squares. So remember just to keep the corners in line. So Control, Shift, click. So we've got 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square. And then we'll just close that bow off. Okay, so we've pretty much got the same amount of squares as we do in the topology plan. Also with the little bow, it's probably about three polygons or squares, and we'll keep that in mind as well. So we'll just go back to the top view and just click out. Also too, as you can see, the bottom bow is sticking out a bit further than the top bow, so it starts close and then it starts to push itself out. So also remember that. So whoops. So click there. Whoop. I'll just undo that. I'll start from the bottom. So there. We've really got 3. That's probably a little bit too sharp. So we'll go here. So click. Cool. Alright. We can also add a little bit more detail to it as well if you wanted to, if it's too sharp for your liking. Okay, so we got the top part done. What we can do now is we can copy one side of this and then flip it over to the other side. So what we can do, we can just select it, go all the way down to where you think the center of the model is. So remember to keep that little gap in between where the triggers are. So remember how we had that little gap in between here? Just remember that gap there. And also too where the arrows slot in to make sure to keep that gap as well. So probably about here is a good side. So now once you've got your selection pretty much well done. Also too, if you can't seem to get it perfect, you could always use the move tool, the marquee tool, and move it in position. So like you can just, for instance, I'll deselect that. I'll use the marquee tool. I'll select anywhere out of there, and I can just use it to move it down till I get it right. You can also zoom in to get it right there. Okay. Alright. Also too, if you're missing pieces out as well, you can't seem to add them in, hold shift, and where your mouse is, it'll come up with a little plus sign, meaning you can add extra selections to your current selection as well. And holding Alt will remove the selections. So if I just hold Alt, it'll start to remove what I don't want. And holding Shift will include them. So I'll just include these in there. Okay. So once you've got your selection set, we can select the Move tool. Now, first, without holding any keys down, it'll have a little cut scissors icon on your mouse. We don't want that. We want the copy. So to copy, hold Alt, and your mouse will change to two mice under each other. This will allow you to copy your selection and move it to wherever you want. So if I hold Alt, click on my selection and move it, it'll create a new copy of what we had selected. So I'll just undo that. What I want is a copy, but I want it to be in the same line as this top half here. So what I mean by that is if I copy and hold Shift, it's going to keep it in line to what we had selected. So even if I move my mouse out, it's going to keep in the same line as that. So okay, so once that's done, try and copy it down to where you think the top of the bow is, to where the center of the other piece is. So probably about here. See where we've got the top of the bow in line with the center of this piece. Doesn't really matter if it's not. Oops, undo. Just copy that down and move it down. Okay, so it doesn't really matter if it's not. We can worry about that later. Now what we want to do, we want to move. We want to flip this around so it's facing the opposite side. So it's flipped vertically. So we just, if you don't have these little gizmos or these little movement tools around your selection, simply go up to where all your tools are, just below the menus, and select Show Transform Controls. So this will show the transforms. See how it's off? Now it's back on? Yeah, just select it so you can see it. Okay, so we want to select this little box here. Now, it's going to flip in accordance with the center of the object, showing with this little icon here. So if you just click and move it down, it's going to move it all the way down to the bottom of the selection. But we don't want that. We want it to flip, don't we? So if you hold Alt and move it, it's going to flip on that center axis there. So now what we can do, we can get it in line to where we want it to. So probably about here. This is fine if you don't get it exact. We can change this using the height axis. So as you can see, we've got an X, Y, W for width, height, and the angle which we want it to go. We just want to focus on the height of it at the moment. So we want it to be negative 100, because a positive 100 won't do anything because it's already flipped on. It's been flipped on its axis as 100 when we copied it down. So we want it to flip back to negative 100 to reverse it. So once you select it, once you set that, just press enter, and it would flip it exactly negative 100 degrees height. So once we are happy with this, now we can just move it back into position. So probably it'll be at there. Okay, as long as it's just overlapping the center of the other side of the bow. Okay, I'll just press enter, deselect it, and there we have our bow. As you can see, we're missing a few lines, so we can just quickly fix this by going to our brush tool, shift, and just go over them. Shift, go over them. Shift, go over them. Okay, and we can just close this this model up here. Okay, so once that's pretty much done, we can focus on the side view this time. Okay, so for the side view, we're going to use rulers as guides to help us match up the top view to the side view. So if you can't see your ruler, it's this little guide on the side of the your canvas. To access it, it's under View and Ruler. Make sure it's ticked on. Also too, if you drag and drop out from the ruler, it will drag and drop out a guide for you to use. So if you can't see your guides as well, it's under View, Show, and Smart Guides, just so you know. So we can use these guides to match up from the top view. So this first guide is going to match up to the top of that spike piece that we made, and just drag out to the bottom piece. Okay, so if you wanted to get vertical guides, just drag and drop from the side ruler. If you wanted a horizontal line or horizontal guide, drag and drop from the top ruler. So really just for this, we're going to use the side ruler for now. So keep dragging out. Use this guide for the top of the planks. This guide for the top of the bows, both bows, and base of the planks. The width of the rounded area that we're going to need. The bottom of the first bow, bottom of the second bow, the start of the extra detailed plank that comes out, the triggers, the end of the trigger, the start of the slope of the plank, and the bottom of the slope, and the end of the crossbow itself. So now we've got basic guides to help us create our side view. I just moved the reference image across so we can see it a little clearer. So we'll just... Okay, first we'll start a new layer. Call it Side View Outline. And we'll start just blocking in our crossbow shape. So make sure you have the side view selected. Start the shape from the top of the bow itself. So we'll just should be that second guide there, and just shift drag out all the way at the end there. And shift drag down. And shift out. As you can see, the handle, the base of the handle is pretty much the same width as where that top piece slope starts. So if I just make it like 2 lines there, 2 lines down here, it's pretty much the same width as the handle's base. So just keep that in mind as well when you're designing this kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter what the height of the handle or the crossbow is. We can simply change this a bit later. We can always, if you make it too narrow, we can always move it down, or if you make it too wide, then you can always move it up. So just remember, you can always just change it around and fix a lot of stuff that you think might look a bit weird in the end result. So yeah, just it's at the moment it's just pretty much like free forming in pieces and shapes, just so you can get an idea of how the crossbow kind of works and what it looks like. So just finish this off probably about halfway through. Just close that off, and we'll close that off there. Alright, so the top piece starts where this guide is here, so we'll just close this one off here. And these front blocks here, they're probably 1/4 down and then 1/4 up as well. So we'll just use these two, probably about here and whoops, and here. Alright, cool. We'll include the top piece as well, so we'll just move this up probably about here and drag out all the way out. till you hit the top of that slope, and just click and click, shift, click down, just so you can get the end of the slope as well. Alright, so we've got the top piece done. We just need the triggers in. So the trigger, they're kind of curved, these triggers. They're not straight up, straight down, and then straight across and then straight down. They kind of curve out and then straight down. So we'll use that as well. So the triggers are probably about here, and this one here. So move out and then move down. Okay, cool. So yeah, we've got the top piece pretty much done. We just need this insert here now. So where the insert goes down and then out, we'll use that too. So we'll start with where that wooden piece starts. So just go down, and it's probably about 1/4, and drag out to there. Yeah, that looks about right. And the same thing for this front piece here. As you can see, the curve doesn't stop where the corner of the bow is. It stops a bit further down to where the extra wires are. So won't worry about the wires. We'll just stop where we think it would stop. We could even make it go down a bit further if you want, to the base of the bow. So we'll just just move that down. So probably let's make it all the way down to there. And then we'll remove that extra edge that we don't need in there. Okay, so this represents our curved area. These represent the 2 blocks. This line in here, this part in here, represents the bows themselves, and this area, which I will do in a second, would represent the spiked piece at the front. So just make sure everything's pretty much done there. Also too, you can see where the wooden piece kind of stops halfway down, so we'll keep that in mind as well. So the wooden piece stops probably about here, goes down, and then it also cuts off and drops down further, a little bit further down, a little bit further back from that, just before where the trigger is. So we can probably stop it where the trigger kind of stops as well, kind of relative to that same area. See, as it goes down, you can see it kind of matches up. So we can use this as a guide as well. So we'll just drop this down to here, that extra piece. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Alright, so we've got the base of the side view. We can also change the handle up. We can even curve it around if you wanted to. Just curve this. Oops. Just curve it around. Remove any extra pieces we don't want. It's a little bit messy, but it's fine for now, as long as you get a simple guide to where they are. Just close that off a bit more, make it a bit more rounded, clean it up a bit, and that's pretty much good. We have to do now is just the little trigger, so we'll just add the trigger in here. We can also change the trigger later on if it's too small or whatnot. So for instance, the handle looks really short, so we can just move deselect that, just move it down a bit, and just select the move tool, move it down, looks about right, enter, deselect, brush tool, extrude down, extrude down, and then we can just close this off. So that's pretty much it there. Also too, you've got a little curve in the center of that in that crossbow there. So the curve pretty much starts where that wooden piece starts. So we can just move this up, move down, then we can just close it off probably about just before the front piece ends, and then we'll just remove any extra edges that we don't want. Okay, so it's looking pretty good so far. We just need to include that front piece there and the bows themselves. So the front bow here stops here. So all you have to do is just start from where the front bow starts, which is this corner here, and shift drag out, and then close it up here, about here, and then shift drag out. We can close it up there as well, and then we can remove any edges that we don't want, or any lines that we don't want there. So that's pretty much our front bow there, and our second bow is behind that front bow, so you won't be able to see it as much, and it'll close off the same way as the other bow as well. So since I deleted those edges, it's because since we're looking at the front, the side view, this front bow here pretty much blocks off any details that's behind it. So just keep that in mind as well. And the last thing we can do is just create that small spiked area at the front there as well. So we'll just I'll go to the shapes tool, which is located just above the hand. You can click and hold it down to select your shape you want. We want the ellipse tool. We just want to simply click and drag. Holding shift keeps it relevant, and it'll create a simple circle for us. We don't want it to fill red. We want zero fill, and we want the outline to be red for us. Use that as the red there. And we want the stroke thickness to be about 5. That's about right. And we can just simply, just not do that. We just simply move it into place. And just zoom in, and then holding shift, keeping it irrelevant. I'm also holding alt to scale it in its center, so we can just get that exact right there, just so it's in line with the two guides that we're using. And we'll just move it into place about here. Okay, once done, just simply remove the extra lines that we don't need in there. So now that the side view is done, I'm going to let you guys design the bottom view, and I'm going to also let you design the front view. So remember to use your guides as a useful tool. You can always drag the guides out. So for the front view, use the horizontal guides using the top ruler, and just getting all your proportions correct. Okay, so once you're done with them, you should end up with something like this. So if I go into this, now see, I've got my top view, my bottom view, just undo those, and side view here. Now, as you can see as well, with the side view, I've used the front of the side view. I've rotated it 90 degrees upwards, so that way I can use these also as a guide to measure the front view of this as well. So that's always good to have a habit like that. So just pretty much drag out and use them as guides as well to get your front view. But apart from that, you're more than welcome to pause this video just so you can get an understanding of what you should end up with. And yeah. So okay, this concludes this tutorial for creating your blueprints. The next tutorial is showing you to import your blueprints into 3ds Max to use as guides.